So I just wanted to thank everyone for coming today. We have some slides and we'll do introductions. Also, if any of you know me, I like to say things that are true, and sometimes I don't have resolve or answers. And so I just want to call out the fact that I'm feeling pretty heavy. Feels annoying for me to work today, if I'm going to be honest. Last week, we had some meetings, and some of you we were in those meetings together. Followed kind of a hard week where a bunch of Black folks were slaughtered. And then this week we have a week where many young children were killed in a school. And I don't know, I don't have words or I don't have anything, but I just want to acknowledge like what I'm bringing into the space, and I'm going to do my best because this shit matters. It does. What we're doing here matters, obviously, like we all think so, because we're here. But I just want to also like, I don't pretend things are normal if they're not. I don't know what normal means. Let's be real. But I don't know if anyone wants to, and I will own also, I appreciate Dr. Shelley modeling this. She wasn't the first person that modeled this, but like, this is fresh in my mind. We did a DEIRJ meeting last week and she led this way. She opened this way. And so I wasn't sure if there's anyone that wanted to offer like a word or two or how you're feeling, or if you want to say anything before we jump in. You don't have to. I just am trying to be real about and not pretend that we're just here to talk about life that's normal, because it doesn't feel normal to me. And that's just where I'll leave at.
Thank you for speaking your truth, Sarah. And it's good to know where you at. I did enough. Everybody know about my week last week. I did enough talking last week about it. But thank you for speaking your truth, though.
Well, we'll go ahead and do introductions then. And if something comes, well, there's a fruit fly. If something comes up in the middle, we're also good at adjusting and adapting. So feel free to speak up. For those of you who are new or haven't attended in a while, you will see that we are, how did Angie describe us? Someone described us like organic and rogue with a little bit of structure. And I'm like, that should be like my tagline in general in life. So that's what we'll do today. So let's start with introductions so that we can all get to know each other. I am Sarah Williams, and I am one of the collaborative network consultants here at the collaborative network. And I work with my esteemed colleague.
Amy Fours, also a consultant with the Jackson Collaborative Network.
I guess I'll go. My name is Marcus Gill. I'm the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer at the Jackson County Intermediate School District.
Kelly Shepard. I am the Early Childhood Consultant at the Intermediate School District, and I oversee the Great Start Collaborative work.
My name is Priscilla Hardrick, and I'm a Trusted Advisor with Great Start.
I'm Angie Guadagnini. I'm the Community Resource Coordinator with Department of Health and Human Services.
Tashna Thomas, Director of Community Engagement for Henry Ford Jackson Hospital.
Rebecca Calkins, Community Project Coordinator, Henry Ford employee, but leader of Drug Free Jackson, and most teams don't.
Alice Walker, Trusted Advisor with Great Start Jackson County. And also I am the Urban Farm Manager for Vista for our greenhouses that are going up in the community.
And I'm Bethany Burge. I'm Community Project Coordinator with Henry Ford Jackson.
That's great. Thanks everyone for being here. This would be great. I will share a screen. Let's get there. And then we will be official.
Artificial. Come on, it's stretching a little bit.
I know. Thanks for checking me on that. So we did this. Amy, do you want to start us?
Sure. So some of you folks have been to our affinity groups before. This one is our first one where we're doing a combined affinity group meeting. So so this format will be a little bit different, and then we're going to talk a little bit at the end about kind of a new concept that we would like your feedback on. So basically, the affinity groups are designed as a way to come together and talk about root cause issues in our community, really those barriers that our community members are experiencing, especially with an emphasis on those experiencing inequitable outcomes. And we focus on partnering with community members, specifically with lived experience, because those are folks that really know what the barriers are. And then trying to really understand what those deeper root causes are that are really preventing them from living their fullest life. We look at building strategies and interventions that we can begin implementing. We build off each other's strengths and weaknesses, and kind of, so very often we bring to the group a statement or a problem issue and kind of dig deep, try to gain experience, engage community members' voices in helping build strategies, and sometimes working into action plans where we're actually specifying the strategies we're going to implement in order to try to overcome those things. And really just kind of a way to gather together, build relationship, and learn more about what each person's doing in the community. So Sarah and I are here to support this, but really the group is led by anyone that comes and kind of working through their issues. We have lots of resources. We can offer support. We can do one-on-one coaching and technical assistance. We can give you guys resources that might help you better engage community members or better understand the root cause problems. But really, we hope that you all lead the conversation and that we can be a support to you all. Let me keep going, Sarah.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So these are just some of the things that we hope that you all as participants gain, or if you attend, here's hoping these things happen. So there's a knowledge and skills, right? We're trying to gather people together so that it's not just, because we know people are doing good things in the community. We don't know many of them, maybe most. I don't know most of them. We're trying to learn about them, and then also not just have them be a good work in a silo, or maybe not just a program. We're trying to gather them together and really move towards systems change. And we do that in these groups. We also do that in individual coaching, but trying to connect what people are doing to big root causes, and then helping us understand your work, and then how can we help connect your work with everyone else's. We have data to show that connections are one of the biggest takeaways from our groups and from our work in general. I think every affinity group we've had has resulted in at least one partner connection that's happened in the group, and then has resulted in connections outside of the group. My internet connection's unstable. Let me know if you can't hear me or see me.
You froze for a minute.
Oh dear.
But we're okay. You're back.
Building trusted relationships with people, with you all, and also have you build relationships with each other. We think that relationships are the key to success in all levels of the work we do, both on the ground and at decision-making high up level. And we will always talk about tracking and measuring progress, because we have to. It's a part of tracking to see if we're being successful, and also being creative about how we decide what is progress and what is success. This is just a quick group norms. Usually, if we have the same group of people, we like to, well, doesn't matter actually, regardless of who shows up, having an agreement among each other that this is how we will decide to operate together as a group. And this is because many of the conversations we get to sometimes will lead to authentic questioning places. For example, if Marcus is like, hey, by the way, the ISD is doing this intervention and it's really good. And I might say, well, how do you know it's good? And who have you asked, right? So there's a place where we want to ask questions, and we want you all to ask questions of each other, and we want to set a norm, group norm of pausing maybe before you just say anything, posing questions, feeling free to put ideas on the table, providing data. We'll probably always talk about data, and hopefully you will as well. Paying attention to yourself and others. If you're obviously take care of yourself if you're not feeling comfortable, or in whatever way, physical, mental, emotional needs, all of it. And presuming positive intention will help us all move forward together. And this is how we like to set a group norm, and then do our best navigating conversations. And a lot of them, I don't know if I would say heavy, but they're like good, deep, messy. And if we can start here, it will end well for all of us. You want to talk about this, Amy?
Sure. So this is kind of like, we don't want to spend our time coming to a meeting and chit-chatting about all these problems and then going back to work. So we've kind of tried to build structure around it to make sure that it's not just chit-chat and we're actually moving to action. So one of the first steps is really building a partner profile. We have sent this, I think, with the meeting reminder, and we'll send it up and follow up to this meeting. But partner profiles are a very simple way to state your name, and then your organization, or if you're a community member, and then what you're doing in the community around system change work, or really just what you're doing. I mean, the goal obviously is to change the systems so that things do not perpetuate, but it's super simple. It's, and you can have multiple people from the same organization, because in one organization, someone might be working on community engagement, and someone might be working on really building trust, and someone might be working on making sure that community members can navigate the services that they provide. So that's really the first step. This is an awesome way of one being letting people know what you're doing so that you can connect with others. So you can go through this whole list and say, wow, I didn't realize that Rebecca was working with teams, because I've been trying to gather teams to really get feedback from the thing that I'm working on. And so you can make connections through this. This also lets us know who in the community is doing work around certain root causes, which is how we kind of design these affinity groups, right? So we were like, okay, we know we have essentially 14 defined root causes. Those are those two barriers that folks are experiencing. And this kind of said, wow, there's a big push in our community around trust between providers and community members and within organizations. But we realized by looking at the data that people put in, that it's something that people really value and they have traction around and they're working toward it. So that's how we pull to get people together in a room to say, okay, what are you doing around it? What are you doing around it? How can we assist? What resources do you need? Let's kind of move to action on that. So the partner profile is really helpful. We have a dashboard in our information hub, so you can click on building trust and see that 13 partners have a strategy around this, and this is what they're doing. And you can reach out and connect with them and say, wow, I see that you're doing work around this. Let's have lunch. You know what I mean? Make those connections. So so partner profile is really the first step to kind of jump in and get involved and be able to kind of be part of that collaborative work. And then come into the affinity groups, like talking about the work, connecting with other people, throwing out problem solving, brainstorming, thought partnerships, things like that. And then we encourage you guys to build action plans. Again, it's a way that on a dashboard and visibly we can see that we're doing things. So that is a simple thing. Sarah and I can assist with you in just, here's my problem statement, right? I found that, this percent of people are not using this service and I don't know why. And so let's break it down into steps. Well, let's find out, let's, engage them and let's build relationships with them, find out what they're experiencing, look at the data, let's disaggregate the data, break it down, which group is actually not using that service. And then kind of reporting on it. Okay, we found this is saying this, moving through that action plan. And then the reporting successes and barriers is helpful. Like, oh, I thought that it would be simple to show up at this park and talk to the kids, and then nobody wanted to talk to me. So like, then someone else can say, yeah, that's not going to work. That's never worked. Or, hey, I made a connection with this person. I attended their, advisory council, and now I've got this amazing advisory group that's helping me do my work. Or, and we try to track those in the win section. I think we'll go through that later, but because that's helpful for them, to, for us to know, wow, this is a thing, they tried this, it didn't work, but this did work. So that's kind of like how we're trying to put some legs around the work that we're doing. Everyone is, like Sarah mentioned, doing so much great work, but we're not connecting and we don't know what's working and not working, and we keep reinventing the wheel. So that's
Hey,
kind of the idea.
Sarah and Amy, have y'all worked with anybody else individually on this call besides me?
Oh, on this call?
Yeah.
I don't think on this call. I mean,
Well, I don't think we have. I will say that I know that Rebecca has worked with Alexa on some specific separate things, but not, I
data
don't think
pieces.
with me and Amy.
Okay. Well, I just want to give everybody, some context of what y'all talking about, because I'm actually working with them one-on-one on doing exactly this. And it was from one of these meetings that they said that, hey, we can help with an action plan. And I had a task on my hand that I actually needed some help with. So over at our Career Center, we had one of our employees notice that our underrepresented students was not finishing at the same rate as our white students. And it was just an observation, but we really wanted to dig into it to see if it was true. So I've met with Sarah and Amy. I'm primarily working with Sarah now. We requested the data and we, broke down a lot of data and we seen some very interesting things. And it wasn't just about ethnicity. We looked at the schools the kids were coming from. We looked at the programs that the kids were in and the percentages in those programs. We converted all the numbers into percentages. And then it just raised more questions. So we requested more data. From this conversations, now we're generating intake and exit survey. So we're getting good work done in this action plan. And then I'm actually meeting with Sarah next week to do an even deeper data dig from the new data that we requested to try to, dig into these root causes. So they're doing good work and they are available and accessible. And I recommend that if you have a project or you have something that you need help with, they can help you.
Our biggest cheerleader, Marcus. I love it.
I swear we did not plant him.
We did not.
I know it's not. I mean, that's just real talk. It's exactly what's happening. I appreciate that.
We appreciate you, Marcus, because we have all these great services and opportunities, and people are kind of tentative to like jump in because they don't really know what it means. And like you said, you just simplified it beautifully. Like, hey, I had this project and a statement, and like we helped walk through the process. So that's awesome.
And I'm not going to claim to be the best at digging in data. And Sarah's actually good at it. So, we can bounce our ideas off each other. And she can help me, look at some things differently that I would have looked at myself. So I'm definitely use them as a resource because they're good at it.
Thanks, Marcus. And I love also, to Marcus's credit, right? He has, when we talk about action plans and when we talk about how we started, like Marcus said, like it came out in an affinity group, like, hey, I have this wondering, I wonder if you can help me. And then that led to something related, but actually we're in like deep now, right? Because we're like, why is this thing happening? Why are students of color not completing the Career Center at the same rate as white students? Why is this happening? And we haven't gotten to the why yet, but Marcus is the first person, right, who's actually committed to finding out whatever the data shows, like not afraid of the data, not afraid of like what the data means. And he has buy-in. You have all these supports behind you. And then there are some potential barriers or like, okay, well, how do we work around that? And honestly, this is the stuff that Amy and I love too, because I get to then go in the community. And like Marcus said, I don't have context with the ISD. I don't know who instructors are. I don't have any lens or bias when it comes to why students may or may not be completing a program. I like disaggregating data and then helping present it, right? And then together I can be like, well, Marcus, why do you think this might be happening, right? And then we can move forward together. But I love it. I would love to do more of that. So thank you, Marcus, for that unplanned commercial. I'm just going to record that bad boy later and play it for all. So we talked about, we already kind of mentioned that. And so then we'll move to the Padlet. And so if you all have been here before, you know that we had captured thoughts and strategies on a Padlet. And often I'll take notes around it. And as we merge into one affinity group and kind of try and figure out the flow of things, we might switch that. So I have a link. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. And if I can do this succinctly, we'll find out together, actually, if I will. I brought up a Padlet that has combined all of the affinity group together. Let's see. Oh, whoops. Okay. Well, whoops.
Whoops is never a good sign.
Nope. I've got
Oh,
it.
there it is.
All right.
So in the chat, you'll see that link. If you click on that and open it in a separate browser, if not, we can help. Sarah's an amazing note taker, so we can help populate that as you speak. But this way you can kind of open it in a separate browser and be typing however, with whatever you kind of want to add to it.
So and I probably just made things very confusing because I shared my screen, which is the Padlet. And so you might think you may be, you may be able to look at my screen and hit the plus sign. However, if you want to add something in, you would go to the link that I put in the chat, and then it will show you the same screen. And if you click on the plus sign, you can add in. Oh, I didn't add the, I think I put the slide in, did I put the slide in the wrong spot?
I'm just seeing a blank Padlet screen.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you check the chat?
Yeah, I opened that. It's just blue. I don't have any of the drop downs. Maybe I'm the only person, but I usually can use Padlet, no problem.
You don't see any plus signs?
I don't see
mine
any
came up.
topic.
Is there a
Plus
pink
either.
plus sign?
I see the four main ones and no plus signs.
Yeah.
I got the main 4 with no plus signs as well.
Do you have anything at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen that, oh, no, nothing? Fantastic. Well, let's see here. Well, let's find out together.
So do you want to try to copy the link again, Sarah? Because you have a plus screen.
I do. Well, I'm just wondering if I did a weird security thing or something. Right? I don't. Okay, well. Oh, that's not what I wanted. Okay, well, I'll try it again.
Yeah, Kelly, we can definitely do a verbal capture. We just want to make sure that if folks don't feel comfortable coming off mute, that we can also capture their stuff.
It looks like it's the same one to me. Does browser matter? I don't know these things. And if not, then I'll just enter them in. To me, that's so strange because before, remember, Amy, it was like kind of over here, that plus sign.
It was, yep. But it's
What
not
if you
there.
what if you right click on the Padlet? Nothing?
Doesn't look like it.
Then we'll just
verbally do it.
Yep. And so Amy captured, I didn't put the slide in the right place. We did the recap of what people have been talking about and and we didn't talk about it, but we have, as most of you know, this is not the first time we are meeting around building trust and inequitable policies and practices and navigating service systems. And some of you have already talked about some of the strategies you're working on. So this is a place where you can talk about if you have any updates, if you've experienced a barrier, if you have an idea of what you would like to work on, but you haven't fleshed it out yet.
So
or
again,
if you're not sure, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, so this is a little different because we have 3 different root causes on this. So it would make feel complicated. Clearly, most of them overlap, right? If there's lack of trust, it's difficult to navigate and there's probably inequitable services on top of it. But this is, if it can either be, I know it says what strategies are you working on? It can even be a problem statement if that's something that you kind of like, I am stuck and this is not a thing. Or you can say, this is a thing and this is what we're trying. So don't feel like there's no wrong answers. It's really just kind of like, let's talk about what the barriers are. And either it's just a problem statement or it's a problem statement if you tried A, B, and C. So yeah, I just don't want it to be limited. So this is where Sarah and I back off and you all start doing the talking.
Kelly, did you want to share something? I'm happy to capture.
Sure. So I appreciate that Alice and Priscilla could join today too. I invited all of our trusted advisors to jump on and be part of this conversation. So just a quick snippet for the group, but the trusted advisors are 5 individuals who are in the community meeting one-on-one with most likely we target people who are kind of disconnected or perhaps living in poverty, but we service the entire county. And so we also track data on every single contact that they make. So we know what the needs are that the community members are mentioning. They help navigate and help them get connected with resources. They have laptops and hotspots so they can help them do the 14-page DHHS form to get services like right on site and help them out. But I would say one of the things that we do that people might not necessarily see is we take that feedback and that data, and then we reach out to community partners that community members are telling us they're experiencing barriers at. And so one example, and Ken doesn't mind me sharing this, is a few years ago when United Way took over, I think it was the energy money, like for electrical bills and things like that. We were trying to send individuals there, and there was a lot of barriers they're being met when they went to get assistance. So what we do then is the trusted advisors meet with all these individuals, help them out, help navigate everything. But then we go back to the agency and we'll say, this is what community members are saying is happening when they come to you for help. So we kind of engage them in conversations to change the system and eliminate barriers. And Alice and Priscilla can also talk to this, but it helps to build trust because there is a lot of broken trust between persons who are living in poverty and the agencies that are set up to help them. And so having a person like an Alice or Priscilla, and we have 3 other trusted advisors to talk with community members one-on-one and walk them through that process and then do something about the barriers has been very successful in helping to build trust in our community.
That's amazing. And I love hearing, and obviously we've said, over and over again, it's about relationships, right? Luckily you had a recipient who was humble enough to acknowledge that maybe everything isn't perfect. And that's a very difficult thing when we're working with organizations to let them, to get them to come to realize like, hey, we're doing our best, but we're not maybe hearing from the people experiencing the problems. And we need to be open to the fact that maybe it's not right. And let's have them help build strategies around it. That's amazing. And I'd love to connect with you, Kelly, really to get more data around that, like what your trusted advisors are hearing anecdotally and what they're experiencing, because beyond just making that connection with the United Way and the energy crisis, like that personal connection is awesome, that outreach and to say, hey, this is a barrier that they're experiencing. I'd love to even get deeper into like, why are folks needing to have supplemental energy, payments, like there's something broken even deeper that it would be really great to kind of dig into, but yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's amazing.
And
also,
Kelly, along with our past parent liaison, given us opportunity to also go and speak to some of the directors that serve the people in the community. So we were able to speak with Zoe with her supervisory committee on different things that we're learning from the community members when they go to get services like at DHHS. So we had a one-on-one, we had a breakout where some of the supervisors that supervises those different programs, they had no idea that, we had such a barrier with our community members when they come in there for services. Well, we're grounds on. So of course they're going to tell us, how their day went, or, not being addressed by a person, but a number. And we also had a conversation with Lifeways as well, where we have a majority of our people in the community that are disserviced with Lifeways, because either, they're having a struggle, with their case managers. Case managers aren't meeting them where they are. They want them to come to them. Everybody doesn't have transportation, which is huge. And thankfully, we are able to give out bus tickets, but still there's a disconnect when we have our community members that are going to these organizations and agencies for services. So we usually get the backlash of, what their struggles are, what their challenges are. And a lot of times the trusted advisors can kind of hand on hand walk them through the steps to kind of ease that tension between them and the organizations that are giving them services.
And can I also add this to the relationship that trusted advisors? I'm sorry, my name is Greg Hardrick. I'm a trusted advisor also. I just wanted to talk about the relationship that not only have we built with people in the community, the relationship that we have built with the organizations, like the CEOs, like Kento, Zoe. That trust in us, knowing that, hey, if I come to Zoe with a complaint from a resident, I know that Zoe gonna get on it, and it's gonna get taken care of. So that way, it's gonna build that relationship that I have with the resident. They know that, hey, man, Greg reached out to so and so. She took care of that. So it's just that circle is being completed, not just with the community people, with the organization, knowing that, hey, I got somebody that can go do this, and I'm gonna get taken care of, and that build that confidence in Jackson County from our residents and stuff too.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing. It's so valuable to have that perspective and that information as we talk about, and really when you're sharing all of that information, I know like Kelly kind of started off, right? Like this is building trust, but this is obviously clearly navigating service systems. And also the reason that all of you are needed in these positions, I would argue, are because of inequitable policies and practices, even if they're not intentional. This is that's what Amy was saying too, right? Because why does this person need help with the consumer's bill or whatever? Well, it's because there are policies and practices that perhaps were designed intentionally to oppress certain populations, right? So, and that's the part that's the heavy, messy stuff that we hope you all are into having that conversation with us, because and it's interesting, this conversation, and I've heard from different trusted advisors before, and I don't know if any of you are willing to share. So, but it's sounding right, like you're going to Lifeways and you're going to DHHS and you're saying, just so you know, these things are happening in the community, just so you know. And it sounds like, I've heard the United Way story before, right? They're open and they're, I would say, humble. You have to have a bit of humility if you're going to say, look, I'm doing my best, and the community is saying it's not good enough. So there has to be humility there. And I think, Alice, you mentioned that Lifeways maybe is, and again, I don't know, I'm trusting you all to tell us, and I'm not afraid to tell truths of barriers, right? But like, to me, there's also a barriers piece in there of like, well, if we need to change systems, and you all have data and you're increasing relationships, what are some of the barriers that are coming up that feel like you're spinning your wheels or you've tried a thing? And I mean, if you're comfortable sharing that, I'd love to hear that too.
Absolutely. I get it all the time, especially I make a lot of trips up to ARE, the drop-in center. And you have clients that are waiting for the case managers to meet them. A lot of times they're waiting, to meet with them about, their prescriptions, or maybe they're having housing issues. Some of them that already have a house, but they're having, problems with the landlord. And maybe it could be, a neighbor. So they're waiting on the case managers that are assigned to them, and they never show up. I know. And I have made phone calls because, some of them don't have a phone, or they lost a phone, or they misplaced a phone, or they don't have minutes. And, I may get a call back from a case manager, and most times it never happens. So you have that client that you're trying to get to Lifeways that have no transportation. Some of them, I don't care if you do have a bus ticket, it's still going to be difficult for them to get to Lifeways and have someone there to advocate, to speak with them, because everybody does not talk the same language. And I think we have a huge barrier when it comes to our community members, because they don't always understand the language and they're not able to comprehend, unless you have maybe a peer support or someone like a trusted advisor there to kind of help them through it, because they get agitated, it gets frustrating, and they feel that they're being, picked at because of the questions that's being answered. If you can get someone there to even answer the questions that they have at that time.
And also, Lifeways, I'm sorry for saying this too. Lifeways is, man, we need some help with Lifeway and our case managers there, because I work at the shelter too, and there's a lot of people with mental illness can't get to their caseworker, or caseworkers don't come to them. But it goes back to where Kelly was saying, is those relationships. If I'm your case manager and I have a relationship with you and you battle with mental illness, I can more so talk to you to get you to do what you need to do if I have that relationship with you. But if I don't have that relationship with you as your case manager, you can't never get a hold of me, blah, blah, blah. It's nothing going to be there. And that's what we're seeing with Lifeways. A lot of them are distant from their caseworker because they have no trust in that caseworker. They can't get a hold of the caseworker. We can't get a hold of the caseworker. So, we like, man, what can we do? Let's set up a meeting. We set up meetings with Lifeways. Stuff still don't change. I mean, and that's why I keep saying Jackson County, when it comes to our mental illness and Lifeways, we need some help. We need Superman. We need help there, because a lot of our mental illness patients, they suffering because they need that help.
I will say we had Lifeway speak at our summit. We had both the crisis team and the engagement team speak, and the engagement team's relatively new. I was trying to find her name. Courtney Edgar, maybe. And their job is to catch people that fall through the cracks. Now, I know Lifeways is also very understaffed right now, as well as everyone is, but that might be a person to reach out to. I'm going to put the video from that, and maybe that's a way to, I don't know if you've reached out to them, but.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I had a young man, he was from Adrian, he's 18-year-old, he was contemplating suicide. So I called him.
Like the setting.
Yeah, multiple participants can share simultaneously.
Hello?
Oh, I think the video is playing.
Oh, I'm like, who's that?
No, that's the video that you just probably linked in. It might have played.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Greg. We'll try again.
Yeah, so the crisis, they were saying something that he's bounded to another county, so they can't help him unless something's going on right now. So I called him, and the young man talked to him and said that, he was thinking about committing suicide right then and there. And the lady was saying, well, you need to reach out to Adrian County. And I got frustrated, and I gave the phone to my manager at the shelter. I said, because here it is, a young man that said that he need help, went to the hospital. The hospital said, no, you okay. They let him back out on the streets. He's out here on the streets, homeless, saying that, hey, I'm going to commit suicide. And the places I'm shooting them to, I'm on the phone with the lady. I'm arguing with the lady, say, hey, this young man need help. Can somebody just come help him now and talk to him? And that was frustrating to me in front of this young man, trying to get him help that he need. And I'm practically got to beg this lady to come help him to keep him from committing suicide. If it wasn't for me taking him to a hotel, staying there at the hotel with him, talking to him, just pleading with him, hey man, it's gonna be okay. Tomorrow I'm come get you. We're gonna do this, that. I'm like, wow, what else could I do? What else can I do? And that was the crisis. That was a hotline. That's the time we have at the shelter, the hotline to call, when someone have a crisis right then and there.
And even when you file recipient rights, they also don't get fine on, transferring their caseload over to maybe a different, person underneath the umbrella it'd be switching them from rec tech. That is so much red tape, it doesn't help them at all because they still waiting on a case manager. So a lot of them still aren't getting their needs met. And then we wonder why, some of the situations happen on the street out in the community the way that it does. And 9 times out of 10, it's because we don't have the case workers following up, even after someone like a trusted advisor have reached out to them and tell them about, this particular client. They're right here. They're at, ARE right now.
Right.
It does not happen that way.
And like you said, William is still out here. I still have his cell phone. I call him every day, check on him. He's still, ain't nobody got a hold of him, case manager, nothing. And he's still out here just doing him. I mean, he called me the other day when I was in the hospital, just talking to me. And it bothers me. I'm like, man, this is an 18-year-old boy. He's fell through the crack. I mean, he's been abused in every way, and I keep telling him, it's not your fault, just the way the world is, that you had to go through that, but it's not your fault.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like, Greg, that's also like a policy issue or a practice that happens with Lifeway. So they call a crisis hotline and there's a policy in place that says we can't service this person depending on A, B, and C. And that's the kind of thing that we need to get organizations to start reassessing. Like, I get it. This is just a caseworker, doing their job, and they've got, regulations in place that says, I'm sorry, this guy is in crisis, but I can't. And we need to start changing those practices and policies to say, your standard operating thing says A, B, and C needs to go to D. That's got to change.
Definitely.
Well, and I think Amy brings up a good point too of and the intent of these groups. And I appreciate you all sharing this stuff with me because I didn't know that, because it sounds like you have good relationships. Well, and United Way and Lifeways do very different things, right? But and DHHS and Lifeways do very different things. And ideally, right, we're all supporting community people in different ways. But it's interesting to me that you have such different responses from people, right? And I tend to believe that the people in power matter, like who is in charge, how they view things and how they view policies and humans and empathy and all of that matters. And so I don't know, I'm just talking out loud and you don't have to have any answers, but I'm just listening and observing. And it's just interesting to me, even Greg, how you were saying, and of course, relationships matter, all of them. The relationships you all have with community members are saving lives, literally, as we're describing it. And also the stuff we do looks pretty removed, right? But we're trying to build relationships among community decision makers so that your work doesn't have to do this. Like if we can get to the point where we can say, well, what's happening with Lifeways? Why is there this barrier? Why is there this rub? Can we resolve that? Can we help do that? So that then they're saying, oh, wow, Greg, I can't believe that this person, that we have this, like Amy was saying, we have this policy in place that doesn't support people the best way. How do we resolve that? So you're not doing as many of these individual daily check-ins. Like that should be the goal, right? To have less need for that because our policies are more inclusive.
Right. Correct.
Do any of you, and this may be in the weeds and maybe you can tell me no for a legal sake or something, but do you all have any idea why Lifeways is the barrier, or has it always been that way? And I'll say, I don't know. I'm not from Jackson. I live in Lansing. I work in Jackson. I'm getting to know it, but I don't know these answers, or maybe you have insight or thoughts, or maybe other people on the call do who have faces that like indicate they might know. Or if you don't want to share, you don't have to either. But if we're going to be in a problem solving space.
Alice could tell you, we've been doing trust advisor for 5-6 years.
Yeah.
And it's been like this with Lifeway.
It's always been this way. And most of them don't want to come out to where they live. If you got a set of people, and there's quite a few people that are at Reed Manor, they don't want to come out there, and they're their actual case manager. You got them that are out there, they're really cutting up. They won't come out. And, you know, you get to a point where you're calling APS, you're calling whoever you can to come and intervene, because a lot of times it doesn't call for 911. And if 911 does come and pick them up and take them to the hospital, they release them and they still got the same issue because nobody's addressed it and they still haven't met their case manager. And then we wonder why some of these things explode when it could have been something that's just coming out. Be the case manager that you are employed to be for that individual. A lot of times you can smooth things over. They know, you know, their clients well enough to know, you know, there's some things that we can do to intervene to keep them away from the other public people, you know, to keep from creating a huge mess out there. A lot of times it doesn't happen. So if the case manager don't come, then you got other people in the community that they explode in front of that cause, you know, maybe a bigger problem where now 911 is called. And I don't think a lot of times it has to go that far. But because of where they live, because of where they're at, even at AR, because of the environment, a lot of case managers just won't come. They expect the client to come to them. That's not going to happen without they're in direct crises right now.
Yeah, that's a tough spot to be in. So that's maybe something that we can look at addressing, kind of how their interactions are happening and who's going to who,
Well,
you know?
And to me, I was wondering, maybe we can think about this too as a next step, is if you're saying they're not going to read Manor, to me, that means that their policies and their employee like expectations are that they don't have to, right? Like there's a piece in there too of like, if they're not going to meet clients where they are, then they're probably not expected to.
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
you know,
I think that they are though. I mean, I think that, I mean, I only know this because my sister received services through Lifeways, and the case managers are required to see where they live at least once a quarter. So that they're not coming is absolutely a recipient rights. But again, it's such a bureaucracy. So I raised my hand to address the maybe why they're not willing to see people who aren't from here. So if the young man that's here and his address is Adrian, are they not seeing him because his address in Medicaid is still in Adrian? And that's an easy fix. That's a going to My Bridges online and changing his address. Even if you're changing it to the shelter, it's still the address here in Jackson County, and then his Medicaid is here in Jackson County. For transportation, if he has Medicaid, his Medicaid plan is required by contract to provide transportation to any medical appointments, and that includes mental health. If he has straight Medicaid, they contact me and I set them up with transportation for their medical needs, and especially for mental health, substance abuse treatment, those kinds of things. So, but if the issue is that their address is in another county, that's an easy fix to go into My Bridges and change that.
Definitely.
So that it's in Jackson County. Now, the fact that case managers aren't seeing clients, that's a different issue altogether. That's a Lifeways that might need to be a director to director conversation about case managers seeing clients. But definitely you need to be that voice for that client. And I found that a lot where we have to be the voice for those folks. And I think that's the whole purpose of the trusted advisors, is being that voice and being that advocate for those people who might not have a voice.
And you're definitely right, because with the young man, William, it was hard getting William to sit down to do that, because no one never really sat down with him to do that. So if I'm not there 24 hours, I lose him. I might come back to my, where's William? He back in the streets. He left the shelter. So then I have to find him. I go to abandoned houses and get him out the house and bring him back. And then, the circle just keep going over and over and over, because he haven't sat down with anybody to make all that change, to flip his stuff from Adrian to Jackson, or his caseworker in Adrian haven't reached out to no one down here, say, hey, you know, I have William Hyatt on my caseload. He's address is at the shelter now, blah, blah, blah. You know, that haven't happened because William can't sit there. He won't sit down long enough to do that.
Yeah. I'm going to jump in right here. Thanks, Rebecca, for being patient. Rebecca's got her hand up, and then also Kelly's got a thing in the chat that she wants you to capture under equitable policies. So
I was going to start typing it up, but it's fine. I was going to say, as a former LifeWays employee, it's always been the case, right? As being in public relations side of LifeWays, it was an uphill battle and a Sisyphus battle. And, you know, like we passed the millage and we're like, oh, services are going to get better. We can now do uninsured. We can now have, you know, get rid of the waiting list. Then they just got the CCBHC, Certified Community Behavioral Health Clinic. Now we can take insurances. Now we can take mild to moderate. And it still hasn't changed, right? And crisis services are supposed to be regardless of insurance and regardless of where your address is. You're supposed to be able to walk in and or get mobile crisis team. If someone is suicidal, you're supposed to get either mobile crisis team to come to you, or you're supposed to be able to walk in and go to the crisis living room model. Figure out the other things, figure out where the Medicaid is coming from later, but we need to stabilize someone if they're actively suicidal. So there's that. I feel like there was something else I was going to say and I already forgot. So yeah, it's a thing. It's like they preach, they say, you know, things are going to change. This is the new policy, but then it never trickles down.
Well, I think you make a good point, Rebecca, because we talk all the time about policy versus practice, and that and a lot of organizations will sometimes, like, we had an affinity group where I think we were talking with Angela Watkins. I mean, she talked about it, but she was like, oh yeah, this is the way we always do things. We don't see clients have to wait 14 days before they're placed in a job, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, she went back and looked and there was no policy that said that. It's just the way that they'd always done it. So they weren't really willing to change it. And until she was like, it's not even a thing. Like, people are just doing things, or the opposite, like you said, we'll put a policy in place, but policy and practice aren't always the same. Kelly, did I capture your comment right? I think we kind of talked about this, right? And I think maybe Alice, I sorry if I don't remember who said it exactly, but we talked about language mattering, and that, and I mean, on everything, right? Both on the questions that are asked, how the questions are asked. We can talk all the time about reading level, like those sorts of things as well. But there's also a language piece around if I am an educated white woman going into a community trying to tell people you should do this, this, and this, already I'm going to have a different impact than someone who's trusted in the community using different language. We also have just different language that we use. So I wasn't sure if I captured that.
Yeah, you did. And yeah, Alice had brought it up, and I just wanted to make sure it had gotten captured before, because when the trusted advisors share the stories with me of what they've experienced in the field, it's really, you wouldn't know unless you've lived it and you've experienced it. And so it's not uncommon that a trusted advisor talks with someone, sets them up for maybe an appointment at Michigan Works or whatever the appointment might be that they need. And they go there and they didn't quite say the right things. So then they aren't successful, and they come back maybe to the shelter or wherever the trusted advisor had met them originally, and they're really upset. And they're venting, and they had barriers. And if they don't have someone like a trusted advisor or somebody who's just willing to sit and help them, take the time to say, okay, tell me what happened and what went wrong, and let's reevaluate, and let's get you back over there, and let's say the right thing, to get that individual just has that barrier and they walk away upset. And then again, now you've lost that trust with this potential agency. But Alice, in this example, was able to redirect the gentleman and say, hey, now that you've vented, let's sit down, let's talk about what happened, and let's come up with plan B. Let's get this to work. So it's a huge a need, a concern that happens on a regular basis.
Mm.
I would add another thing that I just have to say the trust advisors have shared, and it's just always really impacted me when it comes to building trust. Persons living in poverty, or those who are maybe the most disconnected or already have trust issues with agencies, are usually never addressed by their first name. They're not really seen as an individual, like a person to be really respected and cared for. And one of the trusted advisors shared a story with me, and it was actually Alice in this instance, but I'm sure Greg, Priscilla, they've all had these experiences, that she used a gentleman's first name in helping him. And he said, I can't remember the first time someone called me by my first name. And that to me just like stabs me in the heart. I just think, why are agencies and organizations not addressing individuals by their first name and treating them person to person? And that's just a basic human nature to help build that foundation for trust.
Yeah, I think we talk all the time about how our actions and policies and practices are aligning to show that we value all human lives. We've talked about this a lot. Angie has talked in previous affinity group meetings about some of the stuff that DHHS is doing around, well, honestly, I feel like I'm transitioning. I didn't even plan on it. But as we're talking about sometimes policy not matching practice and actually having that be best practice, and also how if our policies are not lining up to honor someone's full humanity or full identity, how are we changing that? I feel like, Angie, do you want to talk a little bit about it? I don't know. Do you have an update? I just feel like we just transitioned and I'm not mad and I'm just going with it.
I'm not sure what I talked about because I talk so much, but I had unmuted so that I could share this most recent inequitable policy that we found. I shared with Amy, I think we chatted. The hospital has a policy that requires that anybody having a medical procedure that requires anesthesia, that the driver has to remain on site throughout the procedure. So I have a gentleman who had called, and he's like, I don't know, the third or fourth person that I've talked to that doesn't have anybody that can take him, and he needs transportation to the hospital. So I set him up with transportation with Jackson Transit, and he tells me, no, they have to stay with me. Oh, okay. So I call the hospital. Long story short, there's a lot, they have a policy that somebody has to stay on site. So when I talk to them about, okay, what are some other things that we can do for this client who has nobody to sit with him, and I can't expect a driver from Jackson Transit to stay with them. What is the purpose of this policy? What is the reason that you have to have the driver stay on site? And the first response was, well, in case of emergency. Well, what kind of emergency will you need the driver to stay there? Well, if they stop breathing or their heart stops. Well, what's the driver going to do? Well, the driver has to give us, direction on what to do next, but it's a driver. It's not a family member. It's not next of kin or anything like that. So after having this conversation in circles for a bit, I said, so who can I talk to about the policy, that policy that isn't working for this particular person, that, if you can have a phone number of a next of kin or a phone number of somebody who can answer those questions and whatnot. Now we are looking at, so that I got transferred to somebody who then put me through to legal. So the lawyer, I talked to senior counsel at Allegiance for this client and talked about this policy that is preventing this person from being able to get the service that they need and the medical care that they need. Now what's happening is they came back with, if the driver can't stay because they're using public transportation, can we arrange that the driver be available right away to come and get the client when the service is provided? So when the surgery is over and the person is out of anesthesia enough that they can be transported home, how long for the driver to get back to the location to take them home? And can the driver then help them to their home so that they don't fall in their front yard or whatever? So that's where we're at now. So we've been able to identify that policy doesn't work for everyone. I have somebody that can stay on site when I'm having a minor medical procedure. Many of us do, but there are many, many folks out there that don't have anybody that can sit with them for a medical procedure. Maybe they can't take off work. Maybe they literally don't have any family. So how are we going to address that for those folks? So it looks like the hospital is now looking at that policy and is making an effort to change that policy for these few people that don't have anybody that can sit with them, by allowing the driver to drop them off, and having Jackson Transit have some way to stay in contact with them, with the hospital, while that person is having procedures, so that they can be back there to take that person home. So I with these inequitable practices and inequitable policies, it didn't dawn on me that this was a huge issue until it was an issue. And am I the right person to be advocating for this? Maybe, maybe not, but I'm the person that the client is talking to. So that makes me the right person. I need to be that person. So when you at trusted advisors are those people in front of the client, it is you that's advocating for them. And it is your role to advocate for them because you're the person that they trust. So, this issue is a building trust. It's navigating service systems. It's an equitable policy. For my client, all three of those are correct. Where does it fit most? I don't know, but that's where it is.
And they all overlap, Angie.
And they
as we've
all
talked about.
overlap. They most certainly do. So that trusted advisor, if somebody is working with this client that I'm working with, we're working together, whether we know it or not. So when we talk about those silos of what we're doing, so many of our silos don't have to be silos. So if I know that my client is working with one of your trusted advisors, I'm going to work with your trusted advisor to make sure that we're all on the same page and that we're doing the same thing, so that we're not overlapping, so that I'm not calling the hospital and you're not calling the hospital and someone else isn't calling the hospital for the same thing, so that we're all working together to make sure that we're addressing the need for the client in front of us. And Sarah, yes, this is definitely considered a win in our system. And I didn't have to yell at anybody. I didn't have to get angry or anything. I just had to explain the problem to the right person and have that person go, yeah, you're right, that's the problem, and be able to navigate something else for the client, because that ultimately that client needs the procedure, and we have to figure out a way to get that procedure while still following that policy.
You did have to push a little, Angie, and so kudos to you.
I did have to push a little. And I had to call a couple times, but we're finally making some progress. So that talking about how we can alleviate the barrier to this gentleman getting a medical procedure that he needs. So,
which is amazing. And I think so often organizations, sometimes if there is, and I might be making assumptions here, but you and I talked last time about why is that even in place? And my guess was that they didn't want to have to wait for a driver. So if someone comes out, it was just an inconvenience for the staff to have to like babysit this person until their ride came. So, but then you create policy around that. Well, now it's our policy and it's absurd. So like, it question the status quo.
Yep. Well, and also I love that you're like you said this, am I the right person? So to me, again, I have the privilege of, I can think of 4 people right now that I could call that would wait for me in a waiting room. And I know
Mhm.
this, I have this privilege that not everybody does. And to
Yep.
your point, Angie, I may not even think about policies because they don't impact me the same way they impact other people. So
Yes.
what I'm hoping to be is an ear so that when Alice or Greg are there telling me things that are happening that are impacting people in the community differently than me, but I actually am sitting at a table with different people,
Mhm.
that I am making sure that that's being shared because my experience is different, obviously, but also my power and where I'm sitting is a little bit different, a lot bit
Mhm.
different. So like, and I love that you share that example because also I don't know if I'm in the right person for some things, but I'll say it. And then if I'm wrong, I'm happy to be corrected. Like, okay, maybe I'm not the right person for that, but like, did you know that this person is having trouble receiving mental health services because of a county thing? Like, that's a big deal. And is that a individual case manager issue or is that a policy issue? Like maybe we should dive into that, right? So I love that you shared that example too, because also there's also a humility in saying like, oh my gosh, I did not realize that this policy would impact this person. Hey, hospital, here's hoping you also have a little empathy and humility because like, let's serve people the best way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it
Well, and it pulled
re-stigmatizes.
in different systems. So Jackson Transit is involved in this process because it's their drivers that are expected to sit in a waiting room to make a medical decision. Well, wait a minute. I don't want a driver making my decisions. But looking at it in a different way, like and being able to be the person that helps them to see that it doesn't make sense. I think that as an advocate in the community, we want to make a difference and we want to do the right thing, and we may not know who the right people are to address it, but I talked with Amy that I happen to be the person that saw the discrepancy, so I made a phone call and that's how it started. Did I start with, we got to change policy because I think it's wrong? No, I started out with, how do we work within your policy? I know policies. I work for the state. We have policies for everything. So I know policies, but I also know that my director is very open to, let's come up with a way that we can work within the policy and still get the needs met. So, just understanding that and knowing that there are people out there that are willing to recognize that. I want to encourage you to keep advocating. I'm not sure how to go about Lifeways, but I can tell you that that those policies are definitely written by people who don't live in the moment, that don't live in I call them the trenches, but they don't live in those trenches. So we have to make sure that they're aware what those are. So be that person.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks for sharing all of it. It's so great to hear all of the work and not that it's great to hear barriers, but also it's all part of it. And as we do the work together, and I would also say that the people that come to these meetings tend to be hope people. Not that everyone's not hope people, but I'll say the people that come to these meetings tend to be hope people. And even on when the world feels like a lot, and sometimes even in the community, right? Like it can be like, man, this has been like this forever. I want to remain a hope person. If on days I feel hopeless, usually my colleagues will be like, all right, rally around, we can do it. But we'll just hopefully continue to be that. I did want to check in if there's anybody else on the call that wanted to add in any things you're working on or things that you want to work on or problems that you have identified before we move away from the Padlet. You don't have to, for sure, but just wanted to give an opportunity for anyone else who didn't get a chance to interject. I'm happy to capture notes or we can move forward.
I have one more thing, but I want to give others a chance to talk too. So I'll just wait a moment. Okay, so I'll jump in real quick. One thing I just wanted to kind of talk through in this group briefly is there was some really good work. The trusted advisors, along with some other individuals in our community, got together under the old umbrella of the community engagement team under the Jackson Collaborative Network. When that kind of dissolved, our Great Start offered to take the lead on an effort to create a community engagement training video for organizations and agencies. And that was a directive from the Jackson Collaborative Network. And we completed that work, and it was presented to the Community Foundation first because they were the funders. And then Sherry received the video and all the training material that went with it. And I know it was launched, and that's wonderful. And it's a wonderfully done video. If you haven't seen it, it really showed some real life examples of how persons coming into an organization, whether it's the shelter or whether it's someplace to get housing assistance, how sometimes they're treated and what it looks like to really engage them in an effective manner. And so there's a lot of just scenarios, and then they talk through why this scenario is important to take a look at and what we should be doing differently. And I just wanted to kind of put out to this group that I hope that this gets captured somewhere in this effort of building trust and the inequitable policies and practices, because I'm really hopeful that the organizations and agencies are going to be utilizing that, and that the collaborative network staff can ensure that that video continues to be embedded, because it was some really good work that was done, and I would hate to lose the impact that I think it potentially can have.
It was an amazing video. I remember it from its inception right to its conclusion, and I absolutely loved every minute. And we do, like, that's kind of a piece of when folks are stuck and they're like, I can't engage, I'm not sure how to, I'm not hearing voices from those experiencing the problems. That's one of the things that we would say, hey, you know what, here's a very short, well done video, locally done, of what they're actually experiencing, what they're encountering when they're approaching certain offices, and how they're feeling. So, we always say those closest to the problem really have the best answers. We want them to build the strategies to address those things. So yeah,
there was a
awesome
quarterly
video.
meeting, and there was an official, yes. Yep, everything with that video. So
yeah, and I just want to, because sometimes we get launches.
I know, and then it gets
let
lost.
fall apart. So it's really helpful.
Yeah.
I appreciate knowing
for
just
sure.
how it's being used.
Yeah, we hope to also have you and your trusted advisors as a regular participant of our groups too, because I think that having that voice and their voice will be helpful as we move forward with this work too, for sure.
Can someone put a link to that video in? I don't think I've seen it.
We can do that, or we can send it in the follow-up email, either one.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, then we'll move forward. And we will maybe go back to this. Let's see if I can do it. I bet I can do it. So this is where next time I'll get this right. What we've talked about in previous affinity groups, things we've talked about, lots of problems and problem solving, etc. I'm going to skip through to a conversation. I'm not sure how much time we'll have to talk about it. We'll do our best. We all of the Jackson Collaborative Network recently attended a collective. Is that the right word? Yeah, thank you. I'm like, I'm missing something. Collective impact. Conference a few weeks ago, a month ago, whenever. And there was a breakout session where someone from a community, I think it was a collective impact person, stated that they had like a matchmaking activity, something in their community, and it translated into community partner matches. It was actually a super creative idea. I liked it because they were using very silly terms like sugar daddy and things like that, or like keeping it casual. And they actually used it and theirs was very specific to matching funders with people who needed funding. And so theirs was very specific, but I thought it was super creative. I liked it because it was kind of silly and funny, and I work well in that space. But the community partners completed like a dating profile what was important to them, and they were matched with each other. And then matches were given $20 for a coffee date, and then you have to like let us know how you met, how did the meeting go. And they said that it resulted in a lot of unique connections that would not have otherwise happened. So I, as we're talking, I attended this breakout session. I was super amused by it. And I was like, I wonder if anything could happen, if we could replicate any part of it. The differences would be that we don't really have funders and fundees, you know, but we do have people that we continue to hear that connection is the best, one of the best ways that people are finding value in these meetings and these spaces. We very quickly talked about, is there a potential for us to do something like this? Like right now we have, if you have a partner profile in our system, we already know what root cause you're working on. And so our thought was like, maybe we could match you with root cause, like, dear Kelly, please meet Angie. You're both working on building trust in the community. Do you already know each other? You know, and so trying to see if this could be a thing. And also owning that it was a quick like idea, funny thing. Maybe it could work, maybe it couldn't work. And also I know I'm not sure this we put slides in the right order or not, but we really have this human-centered design approach. If you're not all familiar with it, it is like, oh, we were inspired by a thing and now we bring it to you all because you're doing the work. Like, does this land? Does it not? And it's really a co-design opportunity. So you all could say, this is amazing, this is great, yes, let's flush it out, or like, actually, this is horrible, do something else. But this is where we've landed. And we thought we would see what you all think about it. We did talk a little bit about potential to match around other things. Like someone's like, well, maybe people would think I really want to match with someone who's like in the same sector, which would just mean that we would have to collect some data on people. Because right now we're not. Like if you have a partner profile, we have your agency name. I might be able to make some guesses, but I don't want to. I don't want to guess people's sectors, you know, so this was our idea. There it is. All right. Would I forget, Amy, anything? How does this
No,
land for people? Is this like blah, blah, I don't want to meet with people, or I just really want to make dating profile sites, honestly, a little.
I really like that idea.
And our first thought around meeting around root cause would certainly mirror or mimic, right, how we have been gathering, like, what are you doing around inequitable policies? What are you doing? And also there are many root causes that people have selected that we haven't met around, right? We haven't had an affinity group meeting, but it doesn't mean they're not important. So someone else might be working on implicit bias, you know? And so I could be like, Marcus, please meet Teshna. Oh, wait, you already know. Go have lunch.
Actually, Marcus is really working on the hiring process. So if anybody's doing that, you can match us up.
The hot date. I'm not afraid to make a hot date. I'll so like that. So to that point of what would be important for people to be matched around, right? Because Marcus just said, and maybe it's something creative. Like maybe if Marcus is like, hey, Sarah, actually, I am looking for other people that are doing stuff around hiring processes. Maybe there's a creative way that we can do a community reach out saying, is there anyone working right now? Like, I don't know. We're just inventing a thing.
I think something to keep in mind when I'm starting my video so I can see folks. Something to keep in mind is I sit on these meetings, but I'm not necessarily the one doing the work. So I'm representing the Department of Health and Human Services and things that we're doing. And I can certainly be the conduit. Like I can certainly share information. Like this is what DHS is doing to alleviate or to build trust. This is what DHS is doing to alleviate inequitable policies. This is what we're doing. But I find it helpful to bring back, okay, what are some of the things that folks are seeing that we could do better or that we could do differently? And then I can take that back to the folks that I work with, just so that Zoe doesn't have to sit in on all.
Oh, yeah. So to clarify, this is
yeah.
not our affinity group meeting. This is something separate. So this
Okay.
is, no, this is not, yeah, this meeting's always going to stay like this. Angie, to your point, you actually just shared something about 10 minutes ago about the work you are doing in your
Mhm.
organization
Yeah.
yourself. So you are doing work,
Yep.
but just different, right? You're not on the ground, right? So you're
Yeah.
at this level, you actually saw a policy that was inequitable and are advocating for it. And you're certainly doing work, like people are doing
Yep.
work at different places.
Yep.
So this would be something that would be outside of an affinity group. And it would be, dear Marcus, please meet someone. There are connections that people are doing. And it's voluntary. Obviously, we can't force you to meet. So it would be a different additional opportunity to connect people based on like-minded something, based on this like-minded thing. We think you should know each other. Oh, you already do? Okay, cool. Do you want to meet? Or, oh, you don't know each other. Oh, you think this person should also be involved? Well, go for it, you know? So we're just thinking about ways to connect people.
We talked about this a little bit before with like the partner profiles. Like there's so many people doing similar stuff, and
Yeah.
but who's got time to get on an information hub
Yeah.
and peruse
Yeah.
through like scrolls of stuff? And it's just, we were trying to make it fun and make it, you know, and enhance connections, because that's what it's about, you know. So
So so far we have 2 people who think it's a good idea with an asterisk. Marcus wants a personal dating. That's cool. Tashna, what do you
No, I'm good. I'm
have?
over here multitasking. I was eating lunch.
No, I'm counting you
all
as
that
in.
stuff, but
I'm counting you in.
I think it's a good idea. You can put me down for the good idea.
Mhm.
Well, I think this is a really good way, like what Marcus was saying. It's like, hey, I'm working on this particular project. It's like, okay, let's put some minds together where we can figure out if we're all working on this, let's collaborate and, you know, move forward with figuring out the solution. So more minds, the better, you know. So I see it as a win.
Tashna, what would you suggest like the connecting piece would be? Because right now, our default is just, my default is like root cause. I'm going to connect you. Oh, you're working on inequitable policies. That's super broad, right? Marcus has a super specific, I'm working on hiring practices. I wonder if anyone else is. Maybe it's an opportunity for me to send an email saying, dear everyone, right? So like, are you saying also like a specific topic?
I think it should be more specific. If we're gonna, and because health inequities is huge. I'm just thinking from our hospital, what we're doing right now. We have so many projects going on around health inequities that it's different, you know. This is a piece of it, this is another piece of it, this is another piece of it. And so I think if it's more specific, I think that would be more helpful. And then you're able to really, I kind of put things in a scope. So it's like, okay, is this scope too big? Let's narrow it down and get really specific, because then I think you're able to make improvements that way. And so I think it should be more specific, like, okay, this is what I need. This is what we're doing.
Yeah,
because
no,
all of it rolls up into that higher, you know, title or whatever bucket you want to call it. But to make progress, we need those small wins for small different initiatives that we're working on.
Yeah, I like that. Just starting with like, hey, I'm working on policy related to transportation or workforce development, or so that it kind of takes that next step into it. What would it need to have? What elements would it need to have in order for you guys to engage? Like it's always kind of like, it's a good idea, but I don't know if I have time for it. What would make it so that you guys are like, hey, I'm jumping in. This is what I need out of it in order to dedicate my time.
I mean, if we're working on it already, you just got to put the time to say, hey, this as part of this project that I'm working on, I'm going to take the time to, it's a commitment, but
Right.
it's going to help you finish the project, you know, that specific project. So if you have the willingness and, you know, like I said, if it's your project, then, hey, I want to check this project off my list. So let's work on it. You know, I don't know. It's going to take a commitment.
Because what you're describing, Teshna, would be like, dear everyone, like, dear Teshna, here's a fun thing we're thinking about doing. What would you be interested in connecting? And then this would rely on everyone, you, for example, putting in what would be important for you to connect with, right? And then you would have to fill in the blank that says, I'm working on really specific, whatever, health and equity policy right now, right? And so to me, then that would make, it would just, and then maybe it's like, and then that would result in me reaching out to you, right? Saying like, tell me a little bit about this. How can we connect you? So to me, what you're describing, right, is investment, commitment, et cetera, from you and me. And then how can we connect? But it would take someone wanting that commitment. And I think what we've been talking about too is like, how can this be fun and also a connection opportunity without being and another thing, right? We don't, because we're not looking to bog people down, but people keep talking about connection being the best part of this. So
You're already doing the hard work. You're already identifying who else might be working on it, giving us the name and the contact. I mean, that to me is a huge help, because just not knowing who else is doing it or their contact information is my biggest challenge. So I think if people really value this idea and they embrace the concept, then making time to connect with that person is the easy part. You guys already did the hard part for us.
Yeah, no, exactly. Because right now I can't tell you who else is working on hiring practices because we haven't asked that. We have asked root causes, name, agency, and then if someone chose to write in their partner profile, I can go through and read it, and then maybe we can find someone. But this will take a little bit more creative work, right? But if you all value that, like, let's find a way to do that. Like, and to me, I would imagine that's only going to result in more connections with for us too, right? Like, I didn't know this person over here that I've never met before is working on changing their policies around health equity, but now they've connected with Teshna, you know. So cool. Sounds messy. No idea
fun.
how to do it. Great. We have a good start.
Sarah's still looking for her. Okay.
Sorry, I have a meeting at 12:30. You got 1 minute to get off. So
thank you for coming.
We are going to wrap up.
Hey,
We want
Teshna, I was gonna tell you to stay on, but call me when you get. I got a meeting at 1, but call me. Let's connect, because when you sent me your advisory committee message, I was out, so we need to connect about that.
Okay. All right, I got you.
All right.
Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Teshna.
Thanks.
Are there any other things? I know it's.
Hello, everybody.
We have to end because we're running.
Hi, Davida. Was that Davida that just joined us?
Oh, I missed someone. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, hello. Sorry. We got people coming and going.
I know.
Got to keep track of them all on
Thanks.
Zoom. So we should and will wrap up because we are at time also. We've covered a lot of things. We'll have an email that goes out to you all. It will have a survey about today's meeting. It will have lots of links. It's super important for us to have partner profiles from you all. And it doesn't matter if you're from the same organization, the work you're doing is individual and unique to you. And this also helps us know what you're doing and be able to represent and connect with you all. So we'll send that link. And please feel free to reach out to us after this meeting if you want to connect. Like Marcus said, we like to work one-on-one with people too, not just in this space, but in all spaces. So, yeah, thanks for the time today. Thanks for making time and for being engaged. It was so great to see familiar faces and new faces at the same time. It was delightful.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a great holiday weekend.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.